Now what are they doing on Harbor Boulevard? Monsters Inc. news that is super suspect. Stay tuned for that. And that's just the stuff I'm not going to mention in our On the Street intro. You need to get your popcorn for this construction update. Let's get on Catella Avenue. Pink paint everywhere. It's the same. It's like a graffiti zone out there on Catella Avenue. It's so much. I'm not even sure what I'm looking for anymore. I can't tell the new from the old. I'm seeing it now in the bushes next to the hotel. Pretty soon next week there'll be paint on the hotel itself. But nothing new this week that I can notice, but nothing new this week that stands out. Now we may be starting this report here on Catella Avenue and Disneyland Drive, where we start every morning. This is the first stop in the morning for me each week, but I'm really excited about what's ahead of us. There's lots of interesting stories going to be happening today. There's developments at Indiana Jones, which is exciting. New demo happening on Harbor Boulevard. I didn't even see this. Somebody had to point this out to me on the street team, on the freshbakepresents.com app. Even the treehouse, the Adventureland treehouse. News there as well. I can't wait to share this with you. And of course, what is the state of the bucket at Disney or downtown Disney? But we're going to get started here, of course, with the fence that's happening at the corner of Catella Avenue and Disneyland Drive. And to the corner we have arrived. Oh man, that does look like there's additional action back there. We saw that mysterious thing down there. Somebody told me what it was and now I can't remember, but what are those tripod looking things? Are those lighting instruments? I think they are probably lighting instruments. So they're definitely doing something here in the dark of night that require the light, but otherwise I don't really see anything new developments. Get in there a little closer. The curb is still there. I don't remember if that was the way that is now. I don't remember. It looks like they may have taken out part of the curb because it extends behind that pile of dirt covered by the tarp, and it was here behind that pile that we saw the curb removed in the past. Otherwise, the scene here looks more or less like we left it. Still looking for any kind of action on the trees in terms of, lights. The lights are still on the trees, which is something, we've been following. If the lights come off, is Pandora being built out here on the corner? That looks like an Avatar plant. When the lights on the trees come off, that's going to be an indicator that they're going to be moving them. They may not at any time point or anytime soon, but if they do, then we'll know they're about to do something. But we got more commentary about this little section of trees coming up in a little bit when we get to the Pixar Place Hotel. But as for now, lights and everything are still on that tree. Lights are still on the tree. Last week we were talking about where the fence ends, and this week I'm going to put eyes on it from the corner here, from the actual corner of Disneyland Drive at Catella, and you can see it. It gets pretty close to the fence, but not all the way. There is. Let's see, those are the last poles that and it turns actually. There's posts there and then it turns inward towards that fence right there. So it definitely is curling in. It's ending before it even gets to the fence. And then obviously that ends before we get to the corner. So anything about 2 trees length inside that fence and then out here and all of this is not Disney. It's not Disney Park, as it were. Oh, there you can see it good right there. Look at that, right there at that fence. There it is. So see how that fence is turned in a little bit. So that's going to mark the boundary of the new park perimeter. The reason why I find that important, as we discussed last week, is because why isn't that park? Right? So if the idea was to grow that backstage area in order to make room for Coco, which I'm now completely convinced this has nothing to do with that, if that isn't park, then what are they going to do with that spot? Because clearly they're not going to just leave it like it is. I find it hard to believe that they would create this fence, put that fence there, kill all those trees, do all that, and then leave that there. So I do believe that this is going to be part of a new, they're going to reconfigure this in some way. And what somebody mentioned in our live stream last Thursday. And I think this is a really good observation. We've been saying that it's for buses, right? That this area is heavily trafficked, and they want to make it safer for guests. They want to make it more hospitable for guests, and they want to make it more hospitable for the buses. But why? Why? This is not exactly a heavily trafficked bus route today. It's not, which is why I had surmised that it could be more related to Disneyland Forward. This is a very future leaning project. We're talking 10 years from now where this is going to be useful. So what it is, hi guys. There's a cheer competition happening at the convention center. Anyway, so, but the connection, what is that Disneyland Forward connection then? Because it's not like guests are going to be entering the park from here. No, Toy Story parking lot. That's going to become a resort area. They're going to be building a hotel and a Disney Springs / downtown Disney type space there. That's what the concept art is suggesting. Toy Story Land, or Toy Story parking lot, I mean. How are you going to get guests? This is where the extra traffic is going to come from. How are you getting guests from the Disneyland Resort to the Toy Story parking lot for that resort? You can't do buses. Toy Story buses are not the answer to that question. That is the most lo-fi, non-guest friendly means of transportation for what is going to be a high end. That's going to be a pricey property, a resort. The hotel is. So they're going to want something that's a little bit more nice, a little better. And where are they going to send those guests? Are they going to send them? Well, they could, I suppose, send them to the Eastern Gateway, but it could also be the fact that they need to have some kind of route here to increase bus line traffic all around the entire perimeter of the park, of the Disneyland Resort. And this could be just one of those areas where they need to improve things. So that's what I'm thinking today. I'm thinking that this is more Disneyland Forward related and specifically related to the Toy Story parking lot, which is eventually going to become a resort destination. Here's a look at that fence now from Disneyland Drive. And it actually, I don't know if you can see that, but it looks like the fence is now extended to the left into that, the driveway into that backstage area, which I was not expecting. They were digging up concrete there last week, but I was not expecting them to build fence. We'll talk about more about that in a minute as well. But just trying to put eyes on that fence line. They haven't installed it yet. They're still just the posts. And just confirming again that fence runs to a certain point, right about where that sign is, and then it just stops. And you can see it turn left. See that? You can see the fence turning left at that point. Yeah, see, now there's those fence posts now into the street. They've extended that fence into the street where vehicles used to pull in backstage. We'll go inside the Picture Place Hotel. What's up, Lampy? Okay, from the top, looks just like it did before. No changes to the landscaping, which is, again, it's still kind of interesting that we haven't seen any landscaping changes. But there you go. There's that fence now running. It's running. So there's no backstage access here. That road is not going to be a road that cars can get into from the street. That situation is over. I don't know if that was not prepared for that. That situation where vehicles could enter backstage Disneyland from Disneyland Drive is no longer going to be the case. A fence will be there instead. Just sort of meditate on that for a second. We'll look down towards the right, towards Catella Avenue, and they're still working on stuff. You can see that they're actually not done. They're still digging down there as well. We'll come back to that. There's the backstage area. So what it is that they've been doing back there that we've been seeing from Catella Avenue isn't demo. It's preparing for the fence to turn left. The fence is turning left, you guys. It's the boundary isn't ending at that corner. I should say it. I thought it was going to kind of be continuous with the existing fence over there, but now there's going to be two fences. Are there? Is that two fences? What is happening in that section? What is the goal there? I can't even get my head around that. Okay, here's, I feel like I'm not giving that enough attention. We'll talk about that some more. There's a couple of construction workers down there still working on the trench work. I'm not sure if they're installing something or if they're just, doing more, fill. What do they call that? Just filling in the dirt there on that line, but they're still working on that. And you can see the fence would continue down that stretch. Before we leave, we're going to take a quick look at the road down there. This is the future site of Disneyland Forward. I've been keeping an eye just to see if I can see any paint from here. When I do see paint eventually, I'll go down there and investigate. But for now, we would see that paint from here. I'm going to go with no paint happening yet at the Simba parking lot. Now the implications of that fence going up at what we thought was going to maintain or still be some sort of service road into backstage is kind of mind-bending because, well, first of all, I've had more than one person tell me that that's not actually a service road in the way that we're talking about it, and that it never really was. It was just another path to get to some of the parking areas, etc. So that's fine. So that's good. That means that they don't actually need it, that they can just demo that service road. If they're building a fence there, that means they don't need that road. It is not going to function in the future plans of Backstage Disney. That does become park, and it does not have to be replaced or done somewhere else. They can just scratch it. But what really scratches my head is that, as we mentioned, where that fence turns left as we view it from the top of the Pixar Place Hotel. So what about that part of the road? Is that staying? If the fence is turning left there, then what are they doing with that street back there? I feel like probably nothing. I feel like the most logical answer to that is nothing. It's going to stay exactly the way it is, and that stretch of road that runs parallel to Catella is not going to change one bit. But it certainly does sort of reconfigure in my mind what the shape of things is in that part of the park, or in that part of Backstage, or what could eventually be park. I want to take this opportunity to remind you guys of our preferred travel affiliate, GetAwayToday. They are great travel partners. They help us out with a lot of trips. If you were digging the scene that you're finding right now at Disneyland, if you're watching our videos and you're saying, oh my gosh, the park is going through so much change, I want to see it, I want to be there and witness some of that. If you're watching our videos on Wednesdays on a rainy day and you're like, oh my God, I love what David's doing out there, he's having so much fun in the parks, I want to participate in the magic and wonder that is Disneyland. What do I do? Well, you call GetAwayToday. You plan your trips. You go in Disneyland, Walt Disney World, Alani, cruises, you name it. If you just want to buy tickets, you can buy tickets from GetAwayToday. You don't even have to book a hotel with them. You can just buy the tickets. The reason why you do that is because while Disney doesn't, they do have a refund policy on their tickets. So use the link in the description to make your plans with GetAwayToday. Let them know we sent you, and I hope you guys have a great trip. Okay, Downtown Disney. Last week I was telling you that they wanted guests to go left and up the tram loading and unloading area. They wanted guests to go that direction. Now they've got a digital sign out here saying, no, we want you to go to the right. I wonder if that's correct. But anyway, they're saying pathway to the tram. So they do want you to take the downtown. I think what happened is that just got too congested. It created too many problems, especially during the busiest times of the day. Now that is an appropriate use of those big vertical digital signs. That is the way you do it, Disney. Well done. Also, by the way, check this out. As if Disney heard the silent scream of 1,000 fans lamenting the loss of the fountains here in downtown Disney. Imaginary is in progress, and the fountains will return soon. Right, so there's another sign. They're definitely telling guests to go towards or alongside the World of Disney, and I think it's to reduce the possibility of super congestion. I saw some crazy scenes coming out of there last week, and others have reported that as well. So they want at least some of you guys to go down to the end and then make that U-turn where the fence is, which you can see the Scrim is up. We're going to get back to that in a minute. The Scrim was down for a minute, but that's going to be this way for probably, I don't know, a couple weeks, I'm guessing. It's not a permanent condition, and it's not going to be a long-lasting one. We got demo, we got Earls sandwich, excavators down there tearing up concrete, two guys working side by side right there, sort of synchronous. They're still tearing up a lot of concrete. We're going to show you in a minute what I'm talking about. But there's those two guys, and then a third one over there who he's just kind of sitting still. He's idle at the moment. A third digger, and then a fourth digger that's also presently idle to the left. So there's 4 diggers back there right now on the other side of those construction walls. Now, I mentioned on Wednesday night we were here, and due to the wind and the rain, the scrims were down. This happens often. That's one good thing about windy, rainy days is they take all the scrims down, and we get a good look where otherwise it would be blocked with some super good scrim. Here we are, Wednesday night. The sun is bad, so it's going to be difficult to see. We're backlit, which is make everything hard to see. But look at all that concrete back there. That's everything that's been tore up, and you can see the dirt where they dig it up. They're going to build a whole new foundation here. They're starting from the ground up, from the very beginning. Unlike Tortilla Joe's, where they left some of that foundation down there, but you can still see there's plenty of concrete for them to dig up still. They still got lots more to dig up towards the left, towards where the ticket booths were. There's some. Now I don't know what that tubing is for. If that's to be installed or has been removed, I couldn't say which one. But there you go. There's that. And then there's a little bit of a further look out. That's right about there is where the proper Earls Sandwich building was. That was the tavern that we're looking at there. That was the tavern. And then right there is pretty much the main building. And then to the left would have been the seating area, the outdoor seating area. What is that? That's not PVC either. I'm not sure what that is. That's metallic of some kind. Oh, they were digging something there. Okay, here's from the long view as you come from downtown Disney. I was hoping to get a better look at that, but that's pretty much what it is. And then scrims are back up, so we only got a brief look of what's happening. But we're still a long way to go for them to remove the rest of that concrete. That's just the beginning of this process. Then they have to grade the dirt. They have to level it out, get it to where they want it. Then they have to do all the below grade stuff. They have to put in all the, plumbing and the PVC and the electric and all that before we start seeing vertical construction. The dirt phase is always the longest, slowest, most boringest phase ever. All right, before we get into DCA, which is where all the news has been of late, finally, we've got some action. And this is one of the most fascinating stories as we come to Adventureland. Well, actually, we're going to get to that first. Let's talk about Jungle Cruise first. Jungle Cruise is closed. We've been talking about this refurb coming up for a little while. Walls are up out in front of the entrance, and as well as the stroller parking area. They've got those cool concept art signs out there. But Scrim is up. Walls are up. It's closed, and they're looking for or looking to discover uncharted territory. I'm really digging the concept art thing. I think that was a really neat idea. We're seeing this throughout the park. They're putting up a lot of concept art on these construction walls where they weren't maybe even a week ago. So Jungle Cruise is closed. Now that is a story.
Now, while the Jungle Cruise being closed right now and for a refurb is news, even though we don't exactly know what they're doing yet, the real news is what's happening next door at Indiana Jones. In relation to what's happening, this is a story that we've been tracking for, I want to say 2 years now. If you caught our State of Disneyland report last week, you may have a hint of where I'm going or what I'm going to report, but this is one of the things that's made me so excited to do this report today. One of the things we mentioned or alluded to in the outset is that we may have done it. We may have actually done it.
This is something that has been years in the making for me. When I first, let me take it back. On Monday, if you caught our State of Disneyland report, then you know already what I'm going to be talking about. This was a surprise for me. We were checking on the queue at Indiana Jones as we often do, and I noticed a bunch of stuff had been gone. They removed it. They took out the boxes, the crates or whatever, and the generator. The generator's gone. The boxes are gone. The wood is still there. But they removed a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, this is it. This could be it. Because I had asked the question, you guys recall, I had been saying, they're going to close the Jungle Cruise. I wonder if they're going to fix that deck. I think now is the time to fix that deck. And knowing that the Jungle Cruise was closing, pretty soon, it closed, I think, a day or two after I shot this, and this stuff is gone, I'm drawing the connections. Sure enough, we come back on Friday and find Scrim and Scaffold up at that same spot. They have covered that's covering half of that deck area now, where the relic was. Right here over the fence is that's where the generator would have been, right here. Obviously, it's still gone. And look at that. You can see some nails down there where there might have been perhaps wood there. They may have already begun stripping that wood. I'm not sure. It's weird, though, that the Scrim is covering half of it. So what does that mean? Like, what does that mean if it's covering half? Are they going to not take out that wood? I don't know. And it does, by the way, the Scrim does continue all the way down, because Jungle Cruise is closed. It continues all the way down to the Indiana Jones exit, which is not really a story, but the fact that they built this bridge, this covering for this space, definitely suggests they are working on this spot. There's absolutely no doubt about it at this point. To what extent, though, it's hard to say, because like I said, why would there be a Scrim over half of it but not the other half? Notice, by the way, the wood planks there. They're building. That's not going to be new fence. I think that's there for other reasons, but that wasn't there 2 days ago. Those new 2x4s, those were not there before. And why do they need to cover that? Well, I'll show you when we get into the Adventureland treehouse. But there's something else. There's a whole like water tower feature that's active in that area that they could be refurbing.
Now, I suppose there is room for the possibility that they just strip it and take it out and leave it. But as far as I understand, that's not the case. I'm hoping that's not the case, but there is that room for possibility.
Perfect.
Now, I have also been led to understand that it goes beyond just the deck and the generator. There were other parts of that whole situation there that were deteriorating, and it all needs to be replaced, the water tower, etc. That's got to happen. As for Jungle Cruise, now, I'm not exactly sure the extent of what they're doing and how much of that is guest facing. I don't know if Piranha are going to be part of this update. I don't know if they're going to be updating the Piranha. I can't say, though, that I do believe that there's going to be some stuff that's going to be back of house, things that are not guest facing, not show changes. They're going to be updating elements of the show, but not in ways that we would immediately notice, probably updating like the Tiger and that kind of thing. I've heard that they're working on the Tiger, or that they may already have. I've heard that they may or may not be draining parts of the river in order to update things like the track, etc. And then they're going to be updating things like backstage, the overflow area where they store the boats. There might be some work down there where they can lift boats up and down out of the water. It's going to probably take, I'm guessing, maybe a month or more. We don't have a date yet. The calendar doesn't go far enough. So if that's the case, it would be 45 days at least. But I'm guessing probably beyond that as well. Perhaps into, maybe April, perhaps. But I'll try to keep my ears to the ground and see what else we can learn. In the meantime, fingers crossed that they do fix that deck and they refresh that and make it look like the way it should. Now, we are right next door to the Adventureland treehouse. That wheel is still not working, and you can see that those buckets are still not working. There's more. Water is off here at the waterfall area. This is one of the most beautiful features of the entire Adventureland treehouse, and the water is off here. Now, I don't think that this is, again, because Disney hates water or that there's necessarily something wrong. It could just be related perhaps to the Jungle Cruise situation. They may have to turn the water off for that, and it could be connected. The Jungle Cruise water could be connected to the Adventureland treehouse water, and therefore they need to turn that off, which is a distinct possibility. What's fascinating is that on this other side, even though the water is off, the buckets are off, and the wheel is off, the sound of those features are still here. Speaking of sound, something you may or may not have already noticed. If you caught our Friday post, our night run, we stumbled upon a great discovery. Listen. It's not what you hear, but it's what you don't hear. The kettle's off completely. They didn't just turn it down. It is off. Not a single whistle from that kettle, either the night before when I was here on Wednesday or today. I have not heard a single whistle coming out of that kettle. I don't know if that's a permanent situation, but that's the situation it is today. I joked on Wednesday. I'm like, well, there's no water. I guess you can't brew a pot of water. So perhaps that's why, but I don't know. I'm relieved though. The sound of that kettle is an unnecessary feature, and it's more of a hindrance, annoyance than it is of a thematic feature. Meanwhile, while we're at the Adventureland treehouse, here's that aerial view that I was talking about. What the reason why they built the scrim and scaffold around that section, so they can update whatever that is. I think that's that. I don't know how to describe that structure, but they're refurbing that now. I don't know if they're gonna take it down, if they're gonna demo it, or if it's just paint and polish kind of thing. Scrim and scaffold usually suggest paint and polish, but one thing that I can say is that we need to leave room
for the possibility that the reason why they built that scrim and scaffold only halfway onto that deck was just so they could cover that thing that they're refurbing. And that's the reason why they took everything out, why the generator and the crates and the boxes are gone, is so that they could build that scrim and scaffold on it, and that they might just put it back. As much as I don't want to believe that, I want to think they're going to update it, and I'm hoping that they do. But there is a very reasonable chance, and that's why, because I just asked that question. Why would they not cover the whole thing? Why aren't they putting scrim and scaffold around everything? Perhaps because they're not going to do anything, and they only took those things out so they could build that scrim and scaffold, so they could fix that thing that's being covered right now that we can see from the top of the Adventureland treehouse. I'm fingers crossed, because I want to, we've been talking about this for a while. I want it to be right, but I didn't consider this at the time. Even when I was on the ground down there, I didn't consider it. I didn't even think about it. I didn't think about that until now in post, looking at this footage and asking those questions. Stay tuned, I guess. We'll find out if our questions are answered. While I was up at the treehouse, I was observing we got a lovely view of the Pirates of the Caribbean queue here, and we made some observations. We rode Pirates on Wednesday, and I was tracking left, first, right, and an interesting thing happened.
Rode Pirates of the Caribbean on Wednesday, and I went right because I always felt like right was the quickest way to go. But I observed that we got our butts kicked by the left side, and I was trying to determine why. But just for those of you who are unaware, you can choose either the right lane or the left lane. You can go to either side. They don't tell you which one to go. You can just pick. But it's, the question, the debate has always been, which side is quicker, right or left? Now, I've always maintained, or I had in the past, that right side was quicker for a couple of reasons. One, left side is where they mix in VIP, club or that kind of thing, plus DAS, they mix in on the left. Also, left side has the side of the house, which is like an extra length of queue space that you have to traverse before you get to the door. And this is where the race ends. It's who gets to the door fastest, left side or right side. Now, when I got in the queue, I noticed, I'm not sure if this has always been, my memory's fuzzy, but somebody else had confirmed they feel like they have lengthened the right side queue. The right side starts this way and it goes around these little switchbacks right here, and then it goes around one of these new trees, right? And then it comes back, and then it starts his loop around and up towards the house. Whereas the left side, it makes that left turn, goes around that corner, and then immediately is making its left into this ramp. So it's this stretch, this part of the queue right here, that the right side is doing that the left side isn't. Now you could say that should cancel out the side of the house, which is true, I would think theoretically. However, like I said, we got our butts kicked.
And we got our butts kicked again. We came back and did it again on Saturday. Stay tuned for that video, the recon session that we did, checking left, first, right at Pirates. Stay tuned for that video on tours departing daily. For now, let's get over to Galaxy's Edge and check in on Rise of the Resistance. When we were there last week, we were excited for a reopening, but it was closed. So we're hoping to get an update this week and see what's going on. And when we arrived this week at Star Wars Rise of the Resistance in Galaxy's Edge, it was closed.
Hey guys, hi guys, sorry. Hi guys. Okay, so a lot of guests out here hanging around, waiting to see. They're going to try to rope drop the breakdown. We mentioned this last week. If you have the gumption, ask a cast member how long has it been closed. It usually takes about an hour to reset. Having said that, so what I mean to say is, if it takes about an hour to reset, if they say if it's been closed for 20 minutes, then you're probably going to be out here waiting for 40. That's the assumption. So factor that into your wait. But having said that, I heard him say he was telling guests to come back later this afternoon. How's it going? Hi. It is it's 12:25. He said it could be a little while. So they may have an expectation that it's not going to be a typical reset period, but just check with the cast member. Don't ask them when's it going to reopen. They're not going to tell you when it's going to be reopened, but maybe ask them how long has it been closed, and then do the math from there.
That'll bring us to Fantasyland and Itemized Snacks. This has been such a week, you guys. Some of these stories that we talk, these could be lead stories. They would have been lead stories 2 or 3 weeks ago. Itemized is getting a refurb. It's closed. They're doing some work on the guest service counter, I believe, as well as updating that covering there, the awning, or whatever you want to call that shady area just to the right where people queue up. There goes the monorail. This will be closed for a couple of weeks, so it's not an extensive job, but it's something nonetheless. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that looks. From the backside, it looks like that hole that they've been digging back there has gotten deeper and bigger. That's right next to the guest service counter. So that's probably what they're doing this for. I'm not sure to what extent. Meanwhile, that seating area behind that space where the monorail goes by is still closed, and you can even see they constructed some kind of fence thing there. I don't know if it looks like it's sort of ad hoc. It's a temporary thing, but I mean, why though? Is that for the Scrim? I'm not sure. There goes the monorail. And they've also put these wood boards down, those square boards. I'm not sure what those are for. I can only assume that might be where they might have had tables mounted. I'm not sure. We'll go to Galactic Grill. The walls are still up on the Matterhorn side of things. Last week we saw that they had removed those walls that were in the middle and revealing a very new paint scheme, etc. As we come up the stairs, you can see that the walls come up to that, just to those leftward windows. So the walls are still up there on the right. But in this week, I'm just as delighted as I was last week. It's so much better. It's just airier. It's more positive. It's more optimistic. It's cleaner, brighter, and the walking surface again. I love it. Great job here. Meanwhile, Plaza Inn. Did you guys hear about the tree? We had the big rain on Monday and Wednesday. Bad enough that it did some damage, as it often does, rain does, and wind. We lost the tree. I wanted to find out where that was. I didn't know what tree fell, but when I arrived, I'm like, okay, definitely there used to be something there. That's way more sunlight than I'm normally expecting to find here. And sure enough, at the back of that section, there it is. That planter, that little plant that they've installed there, it's new. There was a tree there, and as if it never happened. You would think, you walk by here and you're like, oh, that's always been there. No, that's been there for 8 days, or not even 8 days, 2 days. It's been there for like 2 days. They fixed that thing almost overnight. So great job by Disney remedying that situation quickly. With that, I think we're going to head out to Harbor Boulevard to check in on the construction that's been happening at Harbor Boulevard and Disney Way. But on my way out, look at what I found here. This is the transportation hub. That's an excavator on Harbor. There goes. Did you guys? Was that the monorail that just went by? That's the bus depot on Harbor Boulevard. There's an excavator out there. Here we go again. Here's another shot. There's buses going in there to the transportation hub. That's the bus stop on the right. You can see the monorail track up there. What are they digging back there? Let's investigate. There's the bus stop on the right. Incredible that we can see as well as we can through that scrim. Normally, those scrims are very, non-seeable, right? But it's a very thin scrim that they got. It's almost as if they want me. It's almost as if they want me to look through and notice this. So there you go. There's an excavator right there. He's got some dirt. Oh my God, he's got his dirt in the jaw. They're digging up something for some purpose. I don't know. As a matter of fact, there's two. There's the other one. Yeah, there's the other digger back there. Construction workers fast at work. For some reason.
Now this is a development because it's way too early for the Eastern Gateway. It's way too early for any of that, but that is pretty much the exact spot where they would be putting the bridge that crosses over Harbor Boulevard that we're crossing right now. That's almost precisely where that bridge, the pedestrian bridge, would cross over. Meanwhile, I've also heard that the plan is to develop the Eastern Gateway, the actual parking structure, and the bridge that's going to cross Harbor Boulevard simultaneously. It's not going to be a progression of things that they're going to be doing at the same time. So it could be the case that they're getting a head start, but it also could be related to the trying to get more power, more, same thing that they're doing over here at Harbor Boulevard. It could very much be related to that, or something similar. So we'll have to stay tuned. I feel like it's worthwhile just to sum things up real quick to what I'm talking about. See where the Tropicana is right there. Just to the left of that is where the path is that's going to connect the Eastern Gateway parking structure, which is going to be behind these buildings here, the guests are gonna come through that section. That's where they cross over. So if you build a bridge, that's pretty much where you're gonna connect, it's right there. And then that bridge would gently come down this pathway here and then run alongside the backstage buildings there on the other side of Space Mountain. And then this will become sort of not a hub, but just a guest area where people can walk in, and then Avatar over here. The fact that they're keeping it to just this section, that could mean something. It could be, like I said, it could be something completely unrelated to that. I do feel like it's a little early. The fact that it's just that spot right there makes me think it's more related to the Harbor Boulevard work that's happening with respect to power to the park. But again, it is right there. That's exactly where it would happen. And they would have to erect 20-foot, 25-foot support columns like these for that bridge. Something that it can go not just high enough to cross harbor, but also high enough to cross over the monorail track. It's going to go over the monorail track, so it's going to be up here and then make its way down like that. Speaking of Harbor Boulevard, that construction sidewalk is still closed here. Guests are still going the outside route. Looks like they're still working on the construction here. By the way, buses are still running, of course. They're scheduled to close or end operations on March 31st, but Disney has said there will be no interruption in service. They've got a plan B. Let's see what they're doing over here. I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea, but this is what I feel like. It's more likely this or something like this than it is Disneyland Forward type stuff or bridge type stuff, but I have no idea what they're doing here. None. I can only guess that TX times 5 over CF, C minus O22 divided by Florida, 36. I have no idea. What does it mean? And last week, this is where we saw a lot of our action happening last week, right here, and I suggested it's, they're probably just catching up, and now it does in fact look very similar to what's happening on the other side of the street. This looks almost exactly like the other setup, so they're doing the exact same thing on the opposite side. A little symmetry happening here. Still, though, don't know what that is.
You know what, while we're out here on Harbor Boulevard, let's stop at the hotel to check out the backside. We haven't shown you guys this view for a couple of weeks because there hasn't been much. We've been shooting, but there hasn't been a lot to report on. But this week I found something kind of interesting. They put up about a scaffolding. There's a whole bunch of new scaffolding on the backside of this building. And that scaffolding is actually going up. You can see the scaffolding is extending above the roof line. Why would they need to build scaffolding above the roof line? And I asked that question to myself, and then I realized, well, that's for the Quinn Jet, right? If you look at the concept art, and this is a question that I had asked myself way back when. I remember saying, there's a second Quinn Jet in that concept art, and I wondered, well, where is that in what we're seeing them build? I never saw a platform or anything where they were going to put that Quinn Jet. That's what that is, I think. You can see in the concept art that the Quinn Jet is resting on what looks to be a raised platform above the roof line of the existing building. I think that's what they're building back there in that corner, which is kind of neat, guys. They're, because that means we're going to get to watch them build something visible instead of just the concrete walls or drywall or whatever. We might actually get to see them build that. So we're going to stay tuned for that at the backside of Avengers Infinity Defense. We'll take our next trip up to the Pixar Palaround and check in on Coco, where there is still nothing going on, no action at all. I'm now convinced that nothing is happening. They said Coco was going to begin a construction in the fall of 2025. It is now winter of 26. Spring is quickly approaching, and we're still seeing nothing happening back here. I don't know what that means. Man, a lot of questions about the construction projects we're going to talk about. There's still a big story coming up, guys. Stay tuned for our when we get to the backlot. But here is Avengers Infinity Defense. And so it looks like the truss system is starting to fill out. You can see some new gray truss over there to the left. And then as we pan right, they're building there's some steel going up on the roof line there as well, although I don't think that's anything show related. I think that's probably just like HVAC or that kind of thing that they're building on the roof, most likely. No story to tell here at that transition between Cars Land and Avengers Campus with the restroom down there. No action there. And then we'll take another quick look. And yeah, it looks like that gray truss is connecting that steel that we've been watching to the left of that crane. That steel is now being connected to the main building with that gray truss system. We'll get on the ground. Well, actually, first, here's that cars line transition. It looks the same as it did in previous weeks. I don't see anything really noteworthy here. We'll go to Avengers Campus. And there you can see that gray truss just to the right of the Avengers Vault building. You can see that that's what that crane is there for. They're installing that gray truss system. That's going to be the entrance to the Avengers Infinity Defense attraction. That's where you're going to make a left around that corner and enter in that direction. Meanwhile, that Tower of Terror Fast Pass station that they have closed off, they're going to turn into seating. No action there. I have not seen any sort of progress on that thing for a couple of weeks now. That is stalled. Let's go to the back lot. There goes the monorail. You may have heard that the monorail is closing. And people have been asking, some of the discussion has been, is this related to Monsters, Inc.? We should be closed by now. Monsters, Inc. should have been closed by now. Is it related? Are they closing that so they can work on Monsters? And I am 100% confident that that is not the case. I'm 100% confident that this is completely unrelated because they're not closing Monsters, Inc., not for a while.
Well, you know, we talked about surprises, we talked about exciting developments that are happening here in the park this week. I shot that before I even knew that Disney has confirmed that Monsters, Inc. is going to stay open through 2026. It was supposed to close around springtime this year, 26. So it's going to be close to a year extension of that. It's not going to close until 2027. Avatar is still a thing. Avatar is still happening, but just not on the timeline, or at least the demo for Monsters Inc. and all that, not on the timeline they initially expected. Disney has suggested that the delayed closing of Monsters Inc. will not affect the actual opening of Avatar. They're still on track for their same destination, same time frame for Avatar, that it's going to be done at the same time. But it's just going to delay how quickly they close this. Why that is, I'm not sure. There's a couple possible explanations for that. I've been maintaining for a long time that things are in a domino procession, and that there may be a delay with Avengers Infinity Defense. That's a possibility, that they don't want to start this until they're done with Avengers. They may also want to wait until they get a little more progress, a little more development on the Eastern Gateway, the new parking structure they're building out there in Harbor. Reporting there is that they're going to start the Eastern Gateway, the actual demo and construction of that sometime after the summer, maybe early fall, that kind of thing. What that means exactly in terms of it's just shovels in the ground or demo or what, I'm not sure. So they could be waiting for that to get a little deeper into the project before they start working on this, and before they start working on the changes that are going to be happening out here in the transportation hub. I'm of two minds of this. I feel two ways about this because A, I'm happy for all the people who didn't get a chance, or maybe who like Monsters Inc. and they wanted to stay open a little longer. But for selfish reasons, I'm bummed because I want this thing to happen. I want this to get going. I want to watch the construction happen now at the Eastern Gateway. I want to watch the construction happen now out in the transportation hub. I want to see them demo Monsters Inc. now. I wanted that immediately. I'm not a big fan of Monsters Inc., so I'm not sad to see it go, but I really want to see what they're doing with Avatar. So I'm hoping that what they're suggesting, that this will not impede the final timeline for Avatar. It is still happening. Let me repeat that. Avatar is still happening. This has nothing to do with the viability of that project. Although I guess there is room for debate about perhaps the scale. Ooh, this is a good one. Perhaps they're rethinking scale as far as how big and how impressive they want the land to be. Maybe they want to put a little more time. I mean, they don't have to actually, they can still, boy, that's a tough one. If they are talking about scale, that would change the timeline. So that would be a conflicting bit of information. If they're maintaining the same timeline, but they want to make it bigger or more impressive, those two things don't reconcile. So anyway, because I mentioned that because it was in the news recently that Damaro said that he wanted to increase the scale. He wanted to increase the impressiveness of what's going on at Villains Land in Magic Kingdom. But I don't think that's, in terms of, like I said, the information that we know now, I don't think that could apply here for Avatar, although I think it would be great because I want more than one attraction. I want that boat ride and something else, like a smaller ride or something. Same thing that, same issue we had with Galaxy's Edge. It's just not enough. And I want them to go all the way. Let's hope so.
And that's actually a huge story. I could have gone on for that. I mean, I can't believe I limited it as much as I did there. That's a huge story, and the implications of this are mind-boggling. It's worthy of a whole video, which I hope to do on Fresh Bake Presents. Stay tuned for that. But there's a lot of permutations and possibilities for this news about Monsters, Inc. that I really want to get into. There's not enough time in a construction video to talk about that. There is time, though, to talk about Grizzly River Run. Construction has moved forward here. They are starting to move into the next phase of, last week it was the wire mesh. We were in that phase. This week they're adding paint and color and a little texture, doing some fine detail work. I just love watching this. There you go. They are adding the wood type colors, and then if you go to the other side, the logs that were previously in that orangish or wood application stage, and now they started adding texture. They started adding that aged bark on there. Absolutely fascinating watching these things, these levels progress.
One of the reasons why I even do these reports, one of my favorite things about doing construction reports is watching the incremental change of things like that, being able to follow along to track a thing go from nothing, just raw materials, steel or mesh or whatever, plaster, and then watch it turn into something that looks so real. That log, it looks so real. And watching it evolve like that, it's the reason why I started doing these, because I wanted to see each and every step, and I wanted to be able to document each and every step. And it all started 100 years ago when I started following Mice Chat on the web when they were building Cars Land, and watching them build Cars Land from the ground up, from dirt to finished Cadillac range, and I just want to do that. So I want to do that for every single project that's around here. It fascinates me.
And that brings us to Redwood Creek, where we're tracking the progress of these bridge updates. Last week I've said that those look like the same bridge steps there as we saw before. The water is still off on both sides, which makes sense. The water should be off while they're doing this. We'll take a look above, and they've added some 2x4s and tarp covering there over that bridge that they are repairing. And if we get a close look, now I'm starting to second guess whether or not I had it right, because that's new. Those are new boards there for the bridge. They looked aged as well. So maybe that other bridge was replaced. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's go to downtown Disney next for Earls Sandwich. Because of the wind and rain, the scrim and scaffold are down here as well. So we get a good look at that sort of scratch surface that they've applied to the exterior of this building, which is a good sign. It's around the entire perimeter of the building. All of that has been done. It's updated. Well, actually, I think they're still on sheathing phase there, but there's glass here. That's a sign, I think. Glass is a good sign that they're done building on the exteriors at least, because that means you're not afraid of breaking it, right? So what's left is just paint. I think they need only paint the rest of that exterior, right? That's a good sign. So I think we are leaning towards perhaps a summer opening for the new Earls Sandwich. The Lego store, we're still waiting for Woody and Buzz, or whatever it replaces. And with that, we'll get a state of the bucket report. The bucket has moved. Not a lot, mind you, but last week that bucket was about 4 feet to the left of that vertical pole. This week, it's about 2 feet to the left of that vertical pole. And there's some sort of cable running in that space there where there wasn't any last week. Now, it could have been the wind that moved that bucket, but I don't know. But I would say that that's at least a possibility that somebody went back there. Somebody's been on this site and somebody has done something at Tortilla Joe's. How much meaning there is with that, I could not say, but the intrigue meter has gone up 1 point. 1 point at Tortilla Joe's. We'll be back to give you the State of the Bucket report next week. With that, let's talk about the refurb calendar. That's it. That's actually the whole story here at the Disneyland Resort. We'll talk about the refurb calendar. We'll head back into Disneyland. Oga's Cantina closed, reopening on March 14th. Edelweiss Snacks closed, reopening on February 27th. Jungle Cruise is closed on February 17th. We don't have a date yet, although it's going to be Well, right now it's at least a month. I'm guessing perhaps closer to a month and a half, maybe even 2 months, perhaps is my guess. And by the way, stay tuned again. I'm really curious what's going to happen with that deck area there. That's between Indiana Jones and Jungle Cruise. That's fascinating to me. Space Mountain is closed, or it will be closing on February 23rd. That is on Monday. And then reopening on February 27th. Tom Sawyer Island closing on March 2nd, reopening on March 6th. Roger Rabbit is closing on March 30th. That's news. I don't know what that is. We don't have a date yet, but it's too early to see if it's going to be anything extensive. The calendar is only going, 45 days, so that's 66. 30 would be 21. It's probably it's probably a month still. Oh, no, I take that back. No, it's right now it can only be about a week or two that we can see into the future, I think. So we don't know yet for how long. Monorail closing on March 30th. Don't have a date yet for that as well. Over at DCA, Grizzly River Run, as we've known, it's been closed since January 5th. Still no date. So we're looking into March or into April now before that reopens. Looking into April, right? Because the calendar is visible into March 30th. So it's getting into April now. Jumpin' Jellyfish is closed for 4 days. On February 23rd, reopening on, I'm sorry, not 4 days. That's 2 weeks. Reopening on March 6th. And then the Golden Zephyr closing on March 9th, reopening on March 18th. What a week. I cannot wait, you guys. The implications, as I mentioned, about what we've seen this week and all the different stories and what the possibilities might be. Stay tuned, like I mentioned, for a video on Monsters, Inc., what's happening there and the possibilities for Avatar. Stay tuned to see what's happening with Jungle Cruise, what's happening on Harbor Boulevard. What are they building on Harbor? Or they're not building. What are they digging for on Harbor Boulevard? Fascinating. I cannot. There's more. Thanks, guys, for watching. That's our report this week. Stay tuned. As always, we do these reports every single Monday, and join the journey. Join the story with us here on those Mondays, and we'll see you next week. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. And fresh bite.